Hello and welcome to my third video. Today I'm going to be making a masculine card with alcohol inks and simple die cuts. Alright, so to start us off, I'm going to be showing you how to work with alcohol inks on a specific type of paper. This paper I have cut down to 5x7 here is a Yupo paper. It is a synthetic plastic paper and it has a non-porous surface. It works great with alcohol inks because it allows the alcohol inks to flow onto the paper instead of seeping in like it would on normal porous paper. You can use alcohol inks on glossy cardstock, but it's going to give a little bit different effect than it will on this Yupo paper. I've pulled out some Ranger alcohol inks here in the brown tones. I've got some coffee, butterscotch, caramel tones I'm going to use for this first background. I'm actually going to end up die cutting for this card. I go ahead and apologize. I realize I've lost some footage somewhere as I'm making this voiceover, so I kind of speed through this part, but then in the second background I'm going to show you how I make the background. But these colors blend so well. I love all these kind of rich coffee tones that are coming out. It almost looks like how it looks when you drop like heavy cream into coffee. I just think it looks so pretty. Alright, so I'm going to set that off to dry, and then I'm going to come in and show you this second background I made. I'm going to use some darker browns and bring in some turquoise colors with it as well. Turquoise and brown look so beautiful together. Alright, so I have an ink blending tool here from Ranger. I pulled off a piece of felt that I used on the first background, and I'm going to add on a clean piece of felt. Now these blending tools have foam and felt applicators that you can add to the Velcro bottom, but a money-saving tip here for you is to buy a full sheet of felt from Michaels. I think you can get it for 25 cents, maybe less, and just cut off what you need and stick it to the bottom of that blending tool. When you can save any kind of little amount of money that way, I think it's just helpful, but also that means that you can buy more fun supplies like different colors of ink. That's my self-justification anyway. Now I'm only showing you one technique here with this alcohol ink, and it's just kind of pouncing with different colors. These blend together each time you pounce them in a different way, and they react with the ink underneath. You can also bring in an alcohol blending solution or an isopropyl alcohol, and these will move the ink around in different ways. My biggest advice with alcohol inks are just play around with them. Stop where you love the effect and don't go any further, or just keep pouncing, blending, doing whatever until you decide that you have something that looks amazing for you. It's such a fun medium to play around with. It's such a forgiving medium. If you don't like it, you can just add more. You could also go in and take some alcohol and wipe off all that color and start over again. Just have fun with it. See what kind of fun creations you can make out of it. Alright, let's get back to the card. My mom asked me to make her a bunch of birthday cards that she could send out to different people throughout the year, and she wanted some for men and some for women. And I kind of challenged myself to make a more masculine card because most of the cards I make tend to have more of a feminine flair to them, or would probably be at least more appropriate for a woman. So this was a little bit of a stretch for me. But I wanted to see if I could make one using just die cuts instead of stamping, and to pick out a more masculine color scheme for the card. Now I apologize, I'm not sure where this die is from or who makes it. I got this from a fellow paper crafter. I got actually a bundle of different random dies from her as she was ridding her stash. Actually, all the dies that I use for this card are from the random ones that I got from her, including this happy birthday sentiment. Now, especially with intricate dies, it's sometimes hard to get the paper out of the die, so I definitely recommend getting some sort of craft pick. This is the Tonic Tim Holtz craft pick. I was using a straight pen when I first started, and I was constantly losing the pen, and it was so small, it didn't really work really well, so I invested in this craft pick. And if you're going to get into card making, I definitely recommend having it as one of the tools in your arsenal. I find myself reaching for it all the time. Alright, so I'm just going to play around with the composition on this card and do some paper trimming and bring in some of the other die cuts that I have here. So when you get into card making to begin with, it can be extremely overwhelming looking at all the things you want or might need to make a card, and we can get into some of the basics later. definitely some things you will need, but some fun things will come along later that you can invest in. One of my favorite things I have in my stash is my Imagine Crafts Shimmer Spritz spray. I can spray it on the card, which I'm showing you right there. I don't know if you can see that kind of gold shine on it. You can spray it on the card and it gives this really luxe sheen to the card, making inexpensive cardstock look expensive, and it also just adds some interest on the card. All right, so I'm just coming in with my liquid adhesive. I'm going to put it on the back of that lattice work and adhere it down. And then I'm just going to work on the composition with those maple leaves in my sentiment. I took a makeup certification course many, many years ago, and one of the first things I heard out of the instructor's mouth was, you have to learn the rules to break them. And that just has always stuck with me, especially when I'm starting something new, especially something artistic, is that I just have to learn the basics first and have to learn some basic techniques, and then I can be off and running with it with my own aesthetic. Now, being a beginner card maker, I'm still trying to kind of figure out what my aesthetic is, so I try a bunch of different things to see what works for me or what I enjoy working with, and then I go from there. So something I made a year ago might look completely different than what I'm making today. And while my cards might seem basic today, maybe down the line, someone will recognize them as a Vibrate Hire Studio card because of the way that they look. I can tell a Jennifer Maguire card right off the bat without even seeing her name. She just has this recognizable look about her cards that you can tell by a small thumbnail. It's amazing. All right, so I went in with my scoreboard here and scored this cream colored cardstock. Gonna trim off the excess around that card front and then adhere it to my card base. Now I'm going to come in with some Score Pal tape here. This is a double-sided adhesive. It holds out really, really strong. I put it on all the edges of my card front, or the back of my card front, and one strip down the middle, just so it holds well. Now after I did this, I realized that I wanted some of that cream colored cardstock to show and kind of frame this, so I'm trimming off some thin pieces around the edges of my card front. Luckily I didn't cut through all that tape, so I'm able to adhere it down to my card base, and there we have the finished card. It was a little bit of a challenge for me to come up with something a little more masculine, but I'm so glad I did. Thanks so much for following along. If you like this video, hit the like button, comment, subscribe to my channel if you want to follow along in more beginning adventures in crafting, and I will see you next week. Go out there and make stuff. Bye.